video of me doing something ridiculous, really. I don't know why I've got this idea in my head, but let's explore it. So I have been improving the gluten content of flours that don't have much gluten in them. So chickpea flour has not got much gluten in it at all. Maybe it has. No, it hasn't. No, it's not really kind of got any gluten in it. So what I kind of discovered is we can extract the gluten out of wheat flour by mixing the wheat flour with water, kneading it for 10 minutes like you do like a dough for bread, and then you wash the starch out of it using lots of water, and then it turns in, you're left with just the gluten, the glutinous mass, which is seitan, which is used in vegan cookery. So then what we can do is we can add that seitan, gluten, to low gluten flours and create like a bread flour. Then we can add yeast to it and we can turn it into bread, and it gives different kind of flavors. Now if we want to use, but we can't use a sourdough starter to ferment the bread to make it rise. We have to use, because the sourdough starter feeds off wheat flour. I don't know if it's a combination of the starch or the gluten in the wheat flour. I think it's the starch that the sourdough starter eats. Although I did another experiment and the sourdough starter kind of stopped me from collecting the gluten in another dough that I'd put some sourdough starter in and fermented it. It started to break the gluten down, so I don't know if it actually what it eats. But if we're going to make a bread with a flour that's not got so much gluten in it, and we're going to improve that flour, we can't use the sourdough starter unless we use 50% strong white flour and then 50% of the other type of flour, so the sourdough starter has something to eat. So 300 grams of I need to record this recipe, otherwise I'll forget. 300 grams of strong white flour, 140 grams of the gluten, 160 grams of chickpeas. Now, it's not chickpea flour, but chickpeas, and then about 25 grams worth of sourdough starter. And then we've got 100 grams worth of water. We'll probably need more than that, but we'll kind of see. Now, because I'm ridiculous and the way my brain works, is I wanted to use, I don't particularly like chickpea flour. I think it's got a funny taste to it. But that might change when it's cooked. So we're going to do two versions. So we're going to use the chickpea flour, and then what I did was I bought some chickpeas, soaked them overnight, and then taken the skins off them and then pureed them down, so it's kind of like a fine chickpea kind of flour, but not from raw chickpeas, but actually from cooked chickpeas. Ooh, so I kind of reckon you need quite a lot, but you could just buy them and peel them. But it's laborious, and I suppose what I could have done is we could have. No, I can't think of another way. I was kind of thinking that we could push it through a sieve to kind of get rid of the kind of like shell skins on the chickpeas, but I don't think that would work. But let's just see if this works as opposed to how it tastes with flour. So we're going to do 3 different types of these different flours. Smashed up chickpeas, which I've pureed down into like a powder, chickpea flour, and then also, so I've dried out some cooked potato and then pureed it down into a flour. So we're going to make one out of that as well. I suppose I should have just used no, because that was another part of the experiment. God, this is why my videos are too long. I should have made just one video on each of these, but I decided to do 3. Yeah, so when you add, I've made a part when I cooked potatoes. That I've already explained in that bit of the video. So when I took some potatoes and dried them out of the oven, blah 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 blah. So there was 970 grams worth of potatoes, and when dried out, there was about 200 grams worth of potatoes. So you kind of have to factor, if you're going to make some potato bread, you kind of have to factor that into the potato bread. But we're going to use 160 grams worth of that potato. But we couldn't use that amount of potato if we were just to add cooked potatoes to the dough, because there'd be a lot more liquid than we actually needed in the dough. So we'll be limited how much potato we could put in if we were to use just cooked potatoes that haven't been dried out. Because of the water content, there would have been like 700-ish grams more water than we actually need. But this way we can actually add more potato, and because we're adding the gluten to it, it should kind of work. So that made no sense whatsoever. But anyway, so let's see if we can blindly get a bit of a recipe going. So 100 grams, we need a little bit of salt. So a little bit of salt over there, and then 100 grams of water. Now there's liquid in the chickpeas and there's liquid in the seitan already, a little bit of liquid. So that 100 grams just to kind of start it off with, and we'll kind of see how we go. And then what happens is look, you think, oh, that seitan's never going to mix in with all that flour and stuff, but it does eventually over time. So mixy, and then I'll do the other flours as well in the same kind of ratios, and then we get an idea of. I'll have to have more water to those, because there is a little bit of water in the chickpeas, about 50%. What did I work it out? I did 500 grams worth of chickpeas, soaked them overnight, and then cooked them, and came to about by the time we finished, it was about 1,150 grams worth of weight of chickpeas, and that included the shells as well. So I've got loads of chickpeas all over the place now. So this takes a little while to get coming together. And the problem is, you always kind of think that you need to add a little bit more water, but that's not necessarily true. So I'll carry on mixing this together, and then we'll get an idea of if we need to add some more water to it. But we really need to give it a good kneading on a board. I'm burping because I've just had my dinner. To really work that gluten back into the flour, but the flour doesn't look like it's kind of fair. It looks like it'll kind of work, hopefully. So what we'll do is we'll just mix it in roughly, and then we'll leave it an hour, and then the water will have enough time to completely saturate into the flour, and then it'll knead a little bit easier. It might be a little bit coarse, this, because of what we're doing, but it's not as fine as, I think that's about the right amount of water. It's not as fine as strong flour, the chickpea flour that I made. That one, in the packet will be, but this one, I think that's going to be okay. So mix that in, and then the kneading process will knead it all together. So that's that. And then probably another. Should have put some more chickpeas in than that. Oh, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. We'll get the recipe right, won't we? Right, so that's fine. We'll leave that for an hour, so the water can start properly absorbing into the flour, and then we'll come back and knead it in an hour. And in that time, I'll have mixed up some of those as well. So that looks fine. Okay, so kind of the same recipe, but not really, because we'll end up putting more potato powder in and more chickpea flour in, because some of the weight of the chickpea that we put in was already water, so we probably should have put in a lot more than that. Maybe, yeah, but it's going to make a really glue. Yeah, we need to add more, don't we? So how much did I put in? We need to put the same weight in again, don't we? That might make it too wet. No, we'll leave it out for a minute. We might put another. Oh, we can just weigh it, can't we? we'll be able to weigh it. We'll be able to weigh the dough and the difference. We'll be able to, will tell us how much more chickpea flour to put in. I think. I'll have a think about it. I'm not entirely sure. So I have 970 grams worth of cooked potato. It's unseasoned, so what I want to do is I want to smash it and I want to dry it out because I want to make some potato bread out of it. And I kind of want to see, I've done this experiment before, but there's not, most of this is just is water. So we need to drive out the water in it so we can make a flour out of it. Well, add it to some flour and some gluten to see if we can make an improved potato bread. Because when you add potato to a dough mix, or cooked potato like this to a dough mix, you're adding a lot of water as well, so you don't need to kind of add the water. So it's a bit of a fallacy that you're bulking out a bread dough with potato. All you're really doing is just adding the water from the potato and a little bit of potato flour. So if we dry this out in the oven gently, we'll see how much liquid was actually in it compared to how much flour were left. So if you imagine, if we were to put, if you add water to 500 grams with a kilo of flour, it gives you the impression that you kind of think, well, that's a 300 grams worth of water to a kilo of flour. It gives the impression that there's more flour there than there actually is, but a lot of the weight is in the water, so a lot of this weight is in the water. But anyway, so I forgot when I did it. Maybe a couple of years since I did this experiment, and it was after I watched All Quiet on the Western Front, the newer version, and they made turnip bread. And I presume they made turnip bread because they were running out of wheat, not because it tasted particularly well, but it was just a way of bulking out what food they had. And turnips were something that you can just put in the ground and they grow relatively easy, whereas things like wheat is a little bit more complex than that. You know, it's more subject to the weather. I think that's why, you know, I think like turnips is kind of, well, Sweden turnips are cheap because you can just plant them in the field and not get on with it. Anyway, so that's that, and then that can go in an oven on a low heat, and it'll dry off, pull out the moisture, and be left with just the actual the starchy bit of the potato left. Right, I have kneaded the doughs. This one is the chickpea flour, that one is the chickpea puree, and this one is the potato puree. It's a bit rough, is that one? Don't know how it's going to turn out. And some of the doughs are stickier than others. I now remember why I peeled the chickpeas and peeled cooked chickpeas and made it out of that, because I wanted to see if we could use other things, so like beans or pulses type of thing. So the kind of that's why we're kind of using chickpeas. So if we had some cannellini beans, could we use the actual cannellini bean itself? You know, once it's been the shell removed or the skin removed, could we use that to make flour? So it's a nice colour. It smells like dough. Yeah, that one. Oh yeah, so what I did do is I just put in there's 200 grams ish of water, and there's more water in the potato one. So in the potato one there's about 300 grams worth of water. In the chickpea flour one there's about 200 grams of water. So I just put in another 100 grams worth of chickpeas to kind of compensate. Maybe put in more, maybe put in 150 grams. What does it weigh? What does it weigh? What does it weigh? Just if I weigh it, then I'll know how much extra chickpea I put into it. So it's always on the wrong unit, isn't it? Because I've been weighing something else out. Yes, there's 850 grams in there. How much is in there? And we've got to work out how much water we put in. 886 grams. And then in this one there is about that's quite a wet dough, is that? It's going to need some more flour in that, but we can always add that later. It's not sticking to my hands. It's a very wet dough, isn't it? Oh, it's 800 grams in there. So yeah, so 800 grams and whatever those two were, and then we can often work out from the recipes how much extra of the ingredients that we put in. I've now got dough all over my hands, which I've just washed my hands to get rid of all the dough, and now I'm having to wash them again. So we'll cover these, we'll leave them, we'll see if they ferment, we'll see what happens, and we'll be back. Right, they have risen. Let's have a look. So that's the chickpea flour one. That's risen rather kind of quite well. It's a little bit of a wet dough, but it wouldn't have risen if we hadn't have put that bread flour in it. It's a little bit wet. I think I'm going to need some flour into that. I think I'm going to need a bit more bread flour into that. Maybe another, just to take that tackiness away from it. I think if I try and form it into a dough, I will form it into a dough, but if I try and form it before I put it into the brewing basket, I don't think there'll be much elastic in it to kind of keep it in shape. I don't think we'll get that nice split, so we'll probably need a little bit more strong flour into that, but I'll say how much I put into it. And then this is the only problem with using shower caps. So this is that, what's that one? Oh, that's the smashed chickpea one, and this is the potato one. So that's held together a bit better. See, that's rhythm. Look at that. Does that feel? No, we might get away with it. Let's have a play around, see if we can form it into a dough. I'll get a proving basket before we start. Right, so that's okay. I think that one's not too tacky. I think it'll keep its shape. What's this potato one like? That's alright. It's not too. Yeah, it's not as tacky as the chickpea flour, so that's fine. So I don't think they'll. I'm sure I got rid of those out of the way. I don't think they're gonna. Oh, it's a little bit tacky, isn't it? So it's not gonna get like a smooth. It's not gonna get out of it. They all could do with. They all could do with less water in them. Maybe 50 grams less of water. But oh, see, look, it's it's shaping okay. It's going to be rough on the outside. I don't know why I sound a bit croaky today. I've been out for a walk and done some gardening. I don't know why I should sound croaky, but so it would be better made with mashed potatoes, so you can see. It would be better made with mashed potatoes, but we wouldn't be able to get as much potato in it because of the water content of the mashed potatoes. So maybe there's a way around that. Maybe there's a way around that. But maybe that'll be another future video. Oh, it's got a bit of a. There is some bits of potato that's just spoiling that. But that's not too bad. So into a proving basket. See, that's what's happened on the bottom there. That's what's happened on the bottom, but not to worry. We'll see how it turns out. So how does the mashed up chickpea one, will that form into a decent dough? I think so. I've got another proving basket. No, I need to go get another proving basket. Right. Get that out of the way. I just need I've got a bench scraper. I have. I have. It's in the drawer. I should have got. Oh, pan. That's fine. Just goes to show you don't need all that fancy equipment, do you? That's not a bad dough, that. That's not a bad dough. It's still going to have, it's going to be a little bit of the texture of wholemeal flour, like a wholemeal bread, because of the bits in it. But I think that might be kind of quite interesting. That might be kind of quite interesting. So still, it's not going to get the smooth finish on the outside because of the chickpeas. I don't think you can really kind of quite see. But it's not going to be smooth. So what we are doing here is we are stretching the dough from the top and pushing it underneath. So by that kind of movement. So we're pushing at the bottom, as you can see, like that. And what that does is that creates tension in the dough. And then if it's going to have that nice split in it, it'll have that nice split. Also improves the structure of the dough as well, because we're stretching the gluten. And we get that nice tight ball. And then when we slice it, I see it's starting to break up there. So we're not going, it's not going to be a tight ball, but we get that. So hopefully then, because we create tension in the dough, and it's the same. We add tension when we're making baguettes, and we add tension to the dough when we make a loaf as well, like a loaf, like a hovis, like in a tin. We also create tension then, and that's what gives the explosion of bread out of the in the cooking process, and we get that. Now when we slice it, we get that nice split in a sourdough. But that's also down to the water content, the split in the sourdough. If we have a particularly wet dough, we don't get as good a split in it. I have found I don't. When I say we, I mean me. I'm not talking for the everyone else out there who makes bread, bakers and professionals and amateurs. But not to worry. So that's okay. So that into there like that. Let that prove. A little bit of flour on top. They're quite big, these loaves. I'm seeing my sister tomorrow, so one of these loaves might be able to be given to her. So what we're going to do with this one? Let's add 50 grams worth of flour. Yeah, we're going to see a famous restaurant critic talk about his book, I think. And probably some anecdotes and some kind of stories. 50 grams, is that going to be enough? Don't know. That's 50 grams of, that might be enough. That's 50 grams of strong bread flour. So, it was a little bit wet now, yeah, 50 grams is going to be fine. So really we should have put less water in these. But, as always, I'm faffing around, aren't I? Not to worry. But then the only problem with adding flour in at this point is that it will dry. It'll take time for the liquid in the dough to get into the flour. So we'll think we'll have added either too much or too little flour or extra water, but it takes time for it to completely soak into the dough. So even though we think it's dry now, it might actually wetten quite a bit up, but we'll see. But we'll give it a quick knead. Dry it out a bit. I'm not very good with wet doughs, in all honesty. It takes a different skill, which is something that I have not developed. So there's different ways of making sourdough. I tend to knead mine, but some people fold theirs in. I've even done a non-knead sourdough in the past. So that flour's soaked into that dough, and it still feels a little bit tacky, so I might just get all that flour in. So anyone watching this, anyone, I can smell that chickpea flour. And that raw chickpea flavour. So my videos tend to be a little bit too long. I know the internet likes short videos, but a lot of these videos are me learning myself. So it's a case of, if I put all the learning into the video, things I've found as I'm doing, my thought process, so as I'm thinking, I'm talking my way through things. And then if something goes wrong, I can re-watch the video and see what potentially did go wrong or what might need to be done in the future. It's like your workings out when you're doing maths. Sometimes you get the wrong answer, but your workings out correct. You've just done something slightly wrong, and you still get a point in your GCSEs for having the right workings out. So, just knead that a little bit. So, that's why my videos tend to be a bit well, the dough's still going to be a bit wet, but it doesn't matter. Because I am working my way through things as we go. Like, I'm not an expert on baking bread, and I don't really know any expert bakers, and they don't really want to share their secrets. And also, baking bread at home and baking bread in a professional environment is completely different. It's still sticky, still a sticky dough, but we'll leave it at that. I don't want to put any more in. It might be just down to the chickpea flour, but I would recommend, whatever the recipe is, putting less liquid in. Yeah, it's a sticky dough, is that? But we're still creating tension, so we're still, yeah, so dough wants to stick to your hands. And when you first start baking bread, it will just stick to your hands. It's just something that you get used to, and you learn. If you do it enough, you just start to understand how to, I ain't got a proving basket ready. You just start to understand how to touch the dough, that it does end up sticking to your hands. This is sticking to my hands because it's a wet dough, and that's why they do the folding method for particularly sticky doughs, because it just sticks to your hands, as you can see. So I need to get a proving basket ready, but get a proving basket, put that in a proving basket. You can't hardly see it, can you? But put it in a proving basket once I've got one ready, and then we'll prove them, we'll bake them, and we'll see how things turn out. Slightly overproved, or is it just more dough in there than usual? Oh, I need another cloth, hang on. Right, so this is the chickpea flour one. Let's see if is it the chickpea flour one? Or it might be the chickpea one. Oh, I don't know. We'll work out one in the end. Yeah, I think it's the chickpea flour one because it feels soft. So, we'll see if a slice works, but I think it might be a little bit too wet for that. And it's overproved as that, because it's starting to drop. It might get a little bit of rise in the cooking process, but we'll see. But I'm more interested in the taste of it, to be honest. It's had about 25 minutes. Ooh, stuck to the bottom of the pan. What I could do to clean the cast iron pot. Right, feels alright. So that out, it feels a bit heavy actually. That out, this next chickpea one in. I think that's the one with the bits of chickpea rather than the chickpea flour. But we didn't get that split, probably because it was too wet. But another 25 minutes for this one, and we'll see how it turns out. A nice split in that. Then into the oven for 25 minutes. Set the timer. Because I will forget. Right, let's have a look at this potato bread. Oh, look at that. It's got a nice split in it, hasn't it? So, that out of the way before we have a look. So, that's not bad at all, that one, is it? That's not bad at all. So, they've all worked to some degree. It's just the amount of water that we've put in them just needs to be slightly adjusted. So I'll go back through the video and I'll write the recipe in the description, so we can think about, we can cut into those actually. So we can think about maybe using less water in these two, but it was just that experiment to see if we could use different things to make flours. That's alright, it's quite dense though. It's quite dense. I don't know which one that is. That might be the flour one, this might be the, I think this is the one that was made from the pureed chickpeas. Yeah, that's a pure chickpeas one because there's bits of chickpea in there. I think. Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Yeah, that looks like it's got the chickpeas in it. So faffing around with the chickpeas makes that difference rather than using the chickpea flour. But how do those two taste? And then we'll come back and we'll taste that. So you could use all chickpea flour or all smashed up chickpeas if we were using fast acting yeast. But we need strong flour in there if we're going to use a sourdough starter. And we always get a better, nicer tasting bread with sourdough starter. Alright, need a bit more salt really. But it's quite dense. That might be down to the liquid milk. That's the chickpea flour. I don't like chickpea flour. I don't know what it is. There's something about chickpea flour that I just don't like. I could taste to it. What does this one taste like though? Nice and soft. Quite dense. I'm going to eat them. I'm not going to throw them away. But that's a nicer bread. Well, it definitely is the chickpea one, isn't it? Should be able to find a bit of chickpea in there somewhere. It kind of looks, yeah, it is. I can just see the flecks of the chickpeas that were just weren't pureed down as much. Oh. Got a lovely sourdough flavour to it. So, we can definitely use pulses or beans as part of the flour. We just kind of have to faff around with them and get the water ratio right, and the added gluten kind of ratio kind of right. That's not a bad bread. But if it works with chickpeas, it's going to work with beans. It's going to work with pulses. We'll probably another go at it sometime in the future. Chickpea flour. It's almost like I didn't want it to work, isn't it? It's all because I don't like chickpea flour. It's almost like I didn't want it to work, but that's just not quite as. That's quite dense. So using chickpea flours or other flours made from things like that doesn't necessarily want to work. Not to worry. But this looks like it's actually, shouldn't really cut into this because it's only really just come out of the oven. But this potato bread with more potato in it has worked rather kind of quite well. As you can see, shouldn't have cut into it just quite as yet. But we just made bread out of different types of flour so we can put into the bread as we like. So it's not bad. It's quite a heavy loaf, but that's not bad at all, that, considering it's made with cooked potato in quite a high ratio, almost like a half to strong flour. So it should. I don't know what it's going to taste like. It's got a sourdough element to it. You wouldn't really know it was made with cooked and then dried potatoes. But I think most two are really a success. So last time I faffed around with this, I made a butternut squash bread, and I think the same kind of principle applies. If we cook the butternut squash or the pumpkin, dried it out, ground it up. So really, I think I made the mistake of not pureeing it enough before we dried it out. So I've completely put it through a sieve or a moolie. Is a moolie? Those things with a handle that you turn around and mash potatoes, that puree potatoes. Moolie. Yeah, moolie. That's also a vegetable as well. Anyway, so do the same with something like butternut squash or pumpkin or carrots. Maybe not carrots. Yeah, probably carrots. Root vegetables, turnips, Swedes, those type of things, and then cook them down, pureed them, and then dried them, and then used them as a flour, and used half of that flour and then half a strong flour, and we could then use a sourdough starter to actually make a sourdough loaf. Seems like a bit of a faff. And when you put different flours in breads, you generally, so if you're putting potato in, you're generally putting the potato in to compensate for the fact that you haven't got as much wheat flour as you would have liked, as a way of bulking it out. But of course, because we took a plain wheat flour, the type of flour that you use for making pastry, and then extracted the gluten out of that, it's kind of we've got enough wheat flour, so we don't really need to. But it's a way of making a different type of bread. So, and I suppose, yeah. So originally, I kind of thought there's the old nursery rhyme, isn't there? There's the fee fi fo fum. I smell the blood of an Englishman. I'll grind his bones to make my bread. So you kind of think, so was bone ever used, ground up into a flour to turn into bread? I don't know. But anyway, like bone meal, corn meal. Don't know. But anyway, a success. Look at that, it's kind of a nice split, is that? If I had that in most of my sourdoughs, I'd be rather kind of quite pleased. But anyway, so we have learned some things. We have had some successes, so therefore that is a success. If chickpea flour was a bit rubbish, but anyway.